Hi, I'm Shelly with Gilbert Marketplace, and today I'm going to show you how I made this cute skull topiary. And I'm going to show you the paint technique I used and how to put this together. What you will need is some Spanish moss, as many skulls as you want it as tall, a couple hands for this one. You don't have to do that, but if you want to, that's great. Some styrofoam. You will need some sponges and paint. I use the Waverly Black. You can get it at Walmart. You'll need the clear Waverly, and you'll need the wax in the brown. They call it antique, okay? And you'll need some white paint. And just like I said, a couple sponges, and you will need obviously a pot. And this metal rod, I had cut off one of my signs that I had purchased at the Dollar Tree, and I didn't throw these rods out because I knew one day I would use them. And so today I'm going to use those. So just to save time, I cut my styrofoam, I shoved it in the pot. You can glue it in or you don't have to. Just make it nice and tight, and then put your pole in. And then I will show you how I go about painting these. Now, to save time, obviously this is how they come at the Dollar Tree. They're not as attractive. What I do is I go through and I put on more black lines with my black paint. And I'm gonna show you how I do that real quick. You're just gonna use a thin brush and your black matte paint. And I just go around really simple and add on the cracks and the crevices some more distinction, because when you put your wax over or your paint over it, it will show through a little bit better. So just kind of follow the lines that they have, and if you go out of the lines, no big deal. It doesn't have to be perfect because it is obviously Halloween and supposed to look scary. Now I did add some extra details on these ones in the back here. You'll just kind of, I made like little X's to try to get in those circles. Like I said, you don't have to do this exact. They have a seam here. I just accentuated it. I just put a little bit more black going over it. Like I said, you don't have to be perfect with this. It's just to give it some more dimension. I did use the highlights of what was already here, but I did add some extra. So just kind of make by his teeth lines down this jawline where there's a seam. I'm sure it's not really supposed to be accentuated, but I did do that because it's so plasticky, and that is where they put the lines. So even along the chin, and you can sand that little bump if you want, but I just think it adds a little character. Make sure you do in his mouth. And like I said, I'm just doing a real fast job, and I kind of go around to get that real detailed. And then I also go in between each of the teeth. You can kind of see, obviously there's indentions. Just use a thin brush and poke it right on in there. So you could do this real fast. Okay, so I think I got all the details. Sometimes I highlight the back, just anywhere where there's like some bends. Can't have too much detail. So like that, you're going to do all of the skulls the same way. You're going to, and this, you know, takes a little bit of time, but trust me, that will make it really pop out quite nicely. Just kind of highlight those. Now you can do these skulls in different colors. I did like a black, a white, and a brown, obviously. Just because I was like, I think it will look kind of boring if they're all the exact same color. But you'll want to do that on all those. You'll also want to do the same thing on the hands. They already have lines in there, but I just made my black in the cracks a little bit stronger and more detailed, because when you cover it, like I said, this will help it pop out a little bit better. There's no rhyme or reason, like I said, in between the fingers here. On this ugly seam on the side, I just highlighted it so it looked like it was actually supposed to be there. On all his little knuckles, you can see they have some dark in there, but then you can see some don't even have it. And so I just want to make that pop out a little bit better. And that's maybe even the tips a little, like he has fingernails on. And I did do, like I said, both sides, so we'll add a little on this side. And you'll want to do the back side of his hand, because of the way we have him sticking out of the pot, you will see it. So we'll just put some cracks in there, some highlights in the cracks. And just to save time, obviously, I'm not going to, I did do a lot of this highlighting already, so they're dry. And by the time, obviously, you finish one, all of them, you can move on to your next step anyway. So that's how you're gonna do your highlights. You're gonna highlight all the skulls and all the hands. And like I said, by the time those are done, you're done with all of them, then you should be good enough for it to dry. Just put a little extra on here, paint off my brush, that's already on there. Okay, so next we'll start with the brown, because that's obviously the easiest, and you could, like I said, do them all in brown. And what you'll want to do is get a sponge. I just bought the round sponge. I think it has a string on it at the Dollar Tree in the bath section, and I cut it in 4 pieces. I put them in the plastic bags because it is wax and I don't want to have to wash them every single time, too much time. So what you want to do is pour a little on your brush, on your sponge, pardon me. And then you could either dab it out on the plate or not, but since these I kind of want a lot of detail, you're going to just wipe it all over the skull, okay? So this is kind of give it an aged look. You can kind of see it's better than that real plasticky look. So you're going to do that all over. This is, you know, very simple, not a very hard task. Just wipe it on. So most of the time, whoa, came out quickly. The biggest thing is you're gonna get messy, obviously, if it's on your hands. Try to do the big parts, and then where your fingers are, you can do that last. But you're going to get a nice good coat all on the skull. And then you can do this blot technique, and I usually then try to hold it by his eyes. And you're going to like blot it on some of the parts that stick out. His jawline, around his eye, maybe his mouth, and you're gonna get it much more dark, okay? I mean, this is all personal preference. If you don't want it dark, don't do it. But I'm just showing you how I did it. Now on the mouth, like sometimes I use the back side of the sponge and I'll wipe that so it's a little bit more white, because obviously the different colors and textures is what you want, because that's gonna, you know, highlight it nicely. Now give that, just set that aside, and you're going to move on to your next one. So that's pretty good, and like I said, we're gonna come back to it and put in a little more dimension. So that one, we're done. So I'm just gonna cap that up, put my brown sponge aside. Now, this clear wax is strictly clear. So to make it more movable and flowy on your colors, that's what you're gonna use. So this turns pretty much any paint color into a wax. So I'm gonna use a little wax, and this is clear, and I'm gonna pour it on my plate here. And I'm gonna put a dab like that. And then you're going to, we'll do white next. And you're going to use your white paint then. And I'm gonna just use the lid so I don't have to use out of the jar there. Hopefully everyone's seeing everything. Okay, and then you're going to dip it in your wax and then your paint. So now it's more of a flowy kind of texture. And this, we're going to do the same technique, except I'm not gonna wipe this one as much. The white, I kind of tap and do a texture technique here. It just, to me, it looked a little cooler instead of a wiping. You could do whatever you like. Now you can see where I put those black lines in. They're covered up, but not ridiculously. So go around his eye sockets real good, because we want them to look white. You know, kind of aged. A little bit of that wax, a little bit of paint. This way you'll have some good, you know, flow on that. Now, if you get it all over your hands, you might need a napkin. Only because, like I said, I'm gonna grab him by the eyes to try to finish this back area. And so the more you put on, the whiter it gets. The less you put on, obviously, you'll see more of the beige, you know, shine through. Okay, so let's just say we can set him aside. And since on this one, I am doing 4, I'm going to do 2 white. So we'll dip that in there and a little more paint. And I'm going to do this same technique. I didn't know, the first one I did 3, so it was easy. I did 1 white, 1 black, 1 brown, just for different, so when they were stacked on top of each other, there obviously is some differences. You know, there's no rhyme or reason. I just thought, oh, they're all gonna be brown and aged. It might look a little boring, so I just went with that. Then when I switched to do 4, I was like, okay, what other color do I use? Now you could do orange, or you could do something kind of fun if you wanted to, but I just said, heck, the white is really easy and you don't have to do much highlighting with this one. So hence the reason why I have 2 of those, because I was like, less work is always my plan. I don't know about you guys, but the least I can do to make it look the best, I'm on that plan. Okay, so that's, like I said, how quick the white is. That's why I like the white. All right, we'll set that aside. Now we'll do the same thing with our black. We'll do a little bit of the clear since I used most of those. Plus it has white in it, so that would have been a good idea. I could have done gray, because you could have mixed them both and got a gray. That would have looked cool. You know, sometimes being creative, you know, is the thing to do. Not everyone wants the same thing. And I'll cap that white back up because these are chalk paints. Actually, the white I don't even think is a chalk paint, but I do think they dry out if you leave them out too much. Now this one, I'm gonna put the lid back on for a second, because I'm just gonna tip it over and put a little on the lid so that I can use that for my brush. I mean, for my sponge. And this one is my used sponge. So dip it in your wax and a little bit in your black paint, and grab a skull. And this one, you could do the black texture just depending on how you want it to look, or you can wipe it. I did more of a wipe technique on the black, only because I didn't really want it so black. Because now, like, I got a lot of black on there. Let's turn this over. You can't even see any of the highlights, and that's not what we're going for. So you'll want to just wipe that along. I think the wiping technique on the black is a little bit better, but I mean, you really could make them really, really dark and add some, you know, red on him instead for the blood and stuff, so it would really show up. But just try to push it in all his little cracks and crevices and wipe it all. Like I said, we'll just kind of wipe this one And that way it kind of does give it more of a gray instead of totally black. Okay, so now we've got him pretty black. We're going to, like I said, this will make it like a wax, so it will kind of come off. So we're gonna let him dry a little bit here, but that's how I did my black. And we'll let him dry. Now, this would be a good time to wash your hands, only because it will get over everything. So give me a second here. Hopefully everyone's having a good day. All right, there we go. That way we can touch, especially our whites and blacks, and get back to that. So now you would use any of your black, if you needed to go back and highlight anything that you wanted to, you could just put a little more in there if you need to. It's still a little wet, as you can see, but those are all done. We are gonna go back to the brown here. And, oh, I forgot to do the hand too. So we'll do that while I have my sponge out. Okay. So the brown, we will just now dab a little on our, you know what, let me just use the lid. There we go. I hate spilling it out because then you waste. Like if you just use a little on your lid, then you can put the lid back on. So now, once it has a little bit, it's a little bit dry, this was our first one we can do, you can go back and highlight different parts of the skull. So it will like add a little more texture. I kind of always accentuate the crack there a little bit more along the jawline. And so by just adding another coat of it, you can see the dimensions really, really pop out. And like I said, I kind of make this mouth a little bit wet, a little bit whiter. Now, like I said, it is wax, so you can see my fingers still are taking it off a little. So you want to be careful with that, and you know, maybe give it a little more time to dry. Obviously, we're on video and we don't want to like take forever. Everybody's time is valuable, so that's why I don't chit chat and waste your time, because I know when I'm watching people's video, I hate that. Okay, they're like, get with the project, you know? All right, so those, let me actually finish up our hands so you can kind of see how I do the same thing on the hand technique. On the hands, I did them in the brown too. So we will get those all on there, just kind of wipe it. So it's kind of wipe with the brown, wipe with the black, so it's not as dark. Now, if you want it much darker, you can. Then, you know, with the white, I do more of a pounce technique. The wiping just didn't look as good, you know? So that's kind of my thing, you know. Clearly, this is crafts, and you can do whatever you want. I mean, obviously, no two should ever look the same. That's what's nice about hand painting them. We're going to get a little bit darker on here. Obviously, we'll need to cut the tags off. But I kind of wanted to show you, we did get them at the Dollar Tree. And so when this dries, I will probably also make sure you're getting those cracks on the sides of his fingers, because it does make a big difference on the coloring. Okay, let that one dry a second, because I did, let's use a little more of that. My lid fell on the floor. Always on video, right? Okay, so we're gonna wipe that all on real good. And then I will probably come back with my black sponge and highlight like his knuckles, maybe some of his fingertips and whatnot. But you could see how like plasticky it looks by just adding a little bit of wax, how much more expensive he looks and more realistic. I mean, we don't want him to look like plastic, So I just think this gives it a nice dimension, and it's not very difficult. You can get all those Waverly stains at Walmart. These small bottles I think are $1.88. So it's not like, you know, it's an expensive task to do. So now we have the hand done. Like I said, what I would do, I know this is still a little wet, but I'm gonna come back with my black and I'm gonna add a little bit on his knuckles, and you can see like the depth that it gives. So, I mean, it's not hard, it's just about, you know, using your creativity and imagination, and you could make it, like I said, more black. You can kind of do whatever you like, okay? So you could see by adding a little bit of black how much depth it gives it compared to the other. I'm gonna try to do both of these, and it's pretty wet, you see. But you know, honestly, it doesn't even matter, because even if it, you know, comes off a little bit, it's okay. You know what I mean? That gives us dimension. But you can see the difference by adding just a little bit of the black, how much better that looks. Sorry about that. There you go. So, you know, you can just, like I said, have fun with it. You could put red on his fingers if you wanted to make it look like he was bleeding. You can make it as gory or as cutesy as you want. I mean, I could see adding fingernails for some of these people. You know, hey, why not? Go with it. All right. So that's, you're gonna do the kind of the same thing. You could add some black on your skull if you wanted. You know, just be creative. So that's what we're gonna do with those. Now, like I said, with this white, a lot of times I will go back and put in a few more white details, but they're pretty wet, and so we're gonna leave those right now. We're going to go into how I did this. So obviously on the hands, I just set mine in there because I figured when Halloween's over, it will be a lot easier to disassemble this and store it. Now, as for, let me wash my hands real quick. Sorry about that. I want to pick that up so we don't waste that. Give me a second here. Different when you're live versus taping, and I do a lot of lives because I don't have a lot of editorial skills. All right, so next, to get your skulls on, what I used is my handy dandy little creme brulee flame thing. But you know what, they have those at the dollar store, those little ones for your barbecue. But what you're gonna do is you're just gonna heat up this pole, okay? Just give that a little bit of time. The reason why I didn't use a drill, truthfully, because normally that's what I would do, is obviously use a drill, seems a little bit safer. But I did not do that because honestly, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to line these up perfectly, and then my drill bit wouldn't be long enough. So next, you're just going to take your placement, and I did it kind of right under there, and you're just going to push that right through, just like that, and bring it on down. So that melts it, and then you just go right on. Next, we'll put our black one on. Now also, once these dry a little bit better, but I wanted to show you how I did this, I will put a little bit more of the white, and this probably stays hot. You probably push it down just like that. And that will give you your second, and you continue to do the same. So this is how we did our topiary, and I hope you enjoyed that. My name is Shelly, and I'm with Gilbert Marketplace, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, have a great day.